Hello, and welcome to the candidate interviews for the 2015 municipal election. This is brought to you by Citizens for Environmental Balance and taped here in Newburyport's community studio, PortMedia, located on Graff Road. Citizens for Environmental Balance, or CEB, is a grassroots volunteer citizens group dedicated to ensuring that the people's voice is heard during public debate regarding the important issues that will have a long-term impact on the quality of our community's environment and our children's future. One of our mission goals is to present factual information so that informed decisions can be made regarding the future of the community. Citizens for Environmental Balance has, for a number of local elections, run candidate interviews. This is a series of one-on-one interviews with candidates for the city council positions. All candidates have been invited to participate to air their stance on issues and to present themselves to us, the citizens of Newburyport. Each candidate has been given a list of questions 48 hours in advance of his or her interviews in order to prepare. Each candidate shall be asked the same questions. Follow-up questions will be asked as needed, and these will vary. I'm Dennis Chambers. I'm a resident of Federal Street and a registered voter here in the city, and I have essentially formulated these 10 questions. Each candidate's interview will air on the local access channels throughout the remainder of the season. In addition, the interviews will be posted on the internet for those without cable. May the voters be informed. Hello, I'm Dennis Chambers. I'm here on behalf of Citizens for Environmental Balance, and we are talking with Mr. Sean McDonald, a candidate for City Council from Ward 4. Welcome, Sean. Nice to have you
Thanks
here.
for having me here.
Let's jump right in, as it were, and talk about talk about water and sewer issues in town, particularly Plum Island, if you have any interest in that.
If I'm going to be a city council, I'm going to have an interest in it. I've only heard what I've heard through the city council. There's some legal actions going on there. Obviously, there's an issue with the work that had been done, both there and the treatment facility. There hasn't been a lot of information put out there because of it being in a legal fight, so we're only given what we can be given as we progress through this process. So I understand that work is being done to resolve the matter in the meantime, but as far as litigation, we're really being only fed what we can be given until things are resolved.
Right. Now, you're a born and bred Newburyporter, right?
Yeah.
Could you give us a little bit about your education and your career?
I was born and raised here in town. High school graduate. I went on to attend a couple of colleges. I'm currently pursuing a bachelor's degree through an online school. And I spent 20 years in Florida, down in the Fort Lauderdale area. Had the unfortunate opportunity to come back through a family death, and we were debating whether or not to come back. School systems down there were a little overcrowded. I had two daughters that had finished high school and one that was getting ready to go into high school. So my wife and I evaluated the situation and decided that we would take the opportunity to come back and give my daughter, my youngest daughter, the opportunity to go through the high school here and a better school system. And so far it's worked out. A's and B's all the way through.
Love it.
Scored great on our MCAS scores. We just got those back, so I've got no complaints. No regrets at all for making the decision to come back.
Well, I'm glad that you're running for city council. I think it's pretty nice for a born and raised Newburyporter to
townie.
do that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. Let's talk about, now that we've jumped in, let's talk about New England development. I'm sure you've heard the rumors and the facts about Mr. Karp and his company rolling into Newburyport, and many people are afraid that the changes might be too big, too dramatic, too draconian for us to absorb. Do you have any thoughts about NED?
Well, I think my thoughts are along with everybody else's. We don't want to get overdeveloped too soon, too fast, and something that we can't handle. There's an overlay district that kind of controls all the development, what they can and can't do, and as long as they stay within the realm of those requirements, we hopefully will be okay. We got to make sure that we hold tough on the parking. Obviously, there's some discussion about, I know that's one of the questions, the parking garage and moving the parking from the waterfront to the parking garage. And a lot of people have raised the question, is the parking garage to gain parking or to move parking? So
Why don't we deal with that while we're here?
okay, well, again, everybody's, I think the way it was presented up front was we're going to gain parking. But if we're going to move parking off the waterfront into a parking garage, what are we gaining? In one of the city council meetings that I attended here recently, from what I understand, the land is to be given to the city of Newburyport at the cost of what was, I don't want to quote word for word, but the deal that's on the table is 90 spots in the garage. Some of the plans were low.
So we give CARP 90 spots?
We give CARP 90 spots, and we
property.
net about, I think it was where is that? 230?
Yeah.
So 230 we net in the parking garage. How many do we lose off the waterfront? I don't know exactly how many spots are there. We're not getting a whole lot more, in my mind, for the money.
So you're a little nervous about the deal?
Yeah, I guess you could say nervous. You know, we have a parking problem, and I don't know if this is the best resolution for it. Hopefully all the options have been exercised and exhausted before we jump into a parking garage. They're already tearing down buildings. That building, was, I guess, affected in the snow last year. Some walls had been compromised, so they took it down. It just seems coincidental that it was right after a parking garage meeting. So, just like everybody else, you kind of read between the lines and make your own judgment on what you see.
Maybe it's a question of Mr. Karp's character himself. Is he going to turn us into another Nantucket? Is he going to behave himself and see the character of Newburyport and blend
Right.
in? I suppose that's in a lot of people's minds.
It is, from what, knocking on doors and listening to people talk. 2 years ago, the big topic was the waterfront. They want the open space. Again, having lived in Florida and coming back, some of the treasures we have here, I think people take for granted, and they don't realize what they have until they leave and come. If they have the opportunity to leave and come back.
The treasure being, for example, the waterfront.
Treasure being the waterfront. I made it a routine this year to spend my Sundays off down the waterfront in the morning. I'd go down with my wife and we'd have coffee and a sandwich. And there was people that we would talk with that were there all day, and they drove an hour and a half to get here just to sit in the chair and watch the boats go by. They loved it. They drove an hour and a half to get here. They could have gone anywhere else. They chose Newburyport. So if we take that away, we want to be a destination city. You take the destination away, they're not going to come.
Do you see value in building some of the restrooms facilities
Yes,
on the
absolutely,
waterfront?
absolutely. Again, at one of the city council meetings, the gentleman that manages the Orange Leaf made reference to how his bathrooms are used and how he has staff on hand to take care of it as the boaters come in and use them and leave. But he doesn't close his doors to them. He lets them come in. And they they get cleaned up in his bathrooms. Yes,
It seems a bit unfair to me.
it does. But you know what? As a good business owner, my hat's off to him. But he shouldn't have to do that. The city should step up to the plate and provide adequate facilities for our boater community, as well as our public. I mean, just going down there to enjoy the day, you have to use a facility. You shouldn't have to go into a restaurant or a place of business and ask to use their facilities. That's for their employees or their guests. We should have a place for our people that come to visit. Absolutely.
Let's talk a little bit about taxpayers. Do we need relief? Do you feel some folks have said we're paying too much? Some folks have said they don't mind paying taxes at all. They're happy to pay taxes. Are we in a Cinderella world where it's too hot, too cold, just right? What do you think?
We've seen a lot of buildings, a lot of projects over the last few years. I think at last count, we've got about 13 or 14 projects going on right now. Between the fields, the streets and the sidewalks, the culvert project, the in-street project. Again, knocking on doors and listening to the people. they don't want to see their bills going up.
Mm.
They don't want to see, you know, I know my water bill's gone up here recently, to the tune of about $150 a quarter. For people that are on fixed incomes that don't have that extra money, it's a burden to them, and they're not being heard. So yeah, we need to kind of slow the projects down, control our debt, manage our business a little bit better till we get things under control, and then maybe step on the gas a little bit later. Mm-hmm. But I think we need to kind of slow down, regroup, manage our debt, and keep those numbers on the downward trend.
Speaking of, there is the Newburyport city budget. The mayor handles that budget, and she issues it to the city council. The council cannot add to any line, but it can take away if it likes. Do you see any action on your part regarding the city budget? Are you happy with how things are working?
That's a tough question. Not having the access to be in that process, there is, from what I understand, very little that the council can do. From what I understand, the department heads present their requests annually, and the only thing that the council really can do is question the success or failure of the prior year's budget. You know, we gave you X amount of dollars. Did you spend it on what you said you were going to spend it on, and did we complete those projects at or under budget successfully? And really, that's what the city council has control over. They can't question really the department heads. And as far as the city's budget, it's, yeah, you're right. They can't add or delete a line. So where do you pass it, or you nix it, but it goes back to the mayor for review. So it's a vicious circle.
Do you see the current city council as being a good watchdog over those expenditures?
Well, again, we've got a lot of projects going on right now, and just this year alone, like we've got, I think I counted 13 or 14 projects, and a lot of money on the table being used. I think that speaks for itself. Is it needed? Yes. All at once? Why now? Why hasn't it been addressed prior years, prior terms? I mean, it's not something that just came up. It wasn't a problem just this year. It's been a problem for a while, from what I've heard. Again, while I was in Florida, I stayed in tune with what was going on. From a distance, I'd read the paper online and kind of see what was going on from down there. Obviously, couldn't be involved as much as I wanted to be, but
you read our local paper online. I see.
Absolutely, yeah. There's that, and talking to my mother here in town and finding out what was going on. But yeah, it's sidewalks haven't been an issue just now. It's been a problem and I know that's another question.
You opened it up. Let's go. Let's go there.
It's been a problem since the redevelopment downtown, since they redid downtown and made it what it is, which was back in the early 70s when I was a kid. I remember seeing it really, really bad, like it was a war zone, but I saw the growth and the new stores, and I remember Jaime's being on the corner of Green Street being two ways, and State Street being two ways.
I remember State Street being two ways.
I remember driving down N Street. I'm not dating myself, but and the other thing is you used to see the DPW crews out there working, and they'd be fixing the bricks. That was a skill back then. That was a trade. It's a dying trade. We need to get back to that. That's what our town is built on.
One of the things that is curious to me is that sidewalks are among the most visible aspects of the city.
Very true.
I live in Ward 2, and every day I see young parents, young mothers with their wheeling their children in carriages around, and they have to wheel them in the street.
Right, because it's yeah. I mean, I walk down High Street to go downtown, and it's I'm surprised I haven't rolled my ankle.
It's very risky.
It is, but again, it's not a problem. It's a problem that didn't just come about. It's been that way for a while. And why has it been put to the back burner for so long? If there's been X amount of dollars every year allocated to streets and sidewalks, even if you can just do a little bit, well, then do a little bit, but don't do nothing at all. And I think we as a collective group need to understand that and address it. We can't look a blind eye to it. We have to be diligent and get those concerns addressed. That's what people want. They want the streets, they want the sidewalks. This is a walking city. You can't walk on the sidewalks that we have.
I think you're exactly right. One of the things that everybody in town has in common is we all walk on the sidewalk.
Well, you know, it's funny because even in the winter, you have your joggers, and they got to run down the street because they can't get on the sidewalks. And as soon as we get that first warm day, everybody's out. You see the people running, jogging, riding their bikes, pushing their kids. People in this city love to be outdoors. And you know, I live near the new, I'm sorry, I was going to call it the Belleville, but the Bresnahan School. And the two streets that lead down to that school are horrendous. Horrendous. There's no sidewalk on one. So if I'm coming home and school's out, or I'm going to work and they're getting to school, there's people walking down the middle of the street. Yeah. And you know, you can't fault them. There's nowhere for them to go. And this is a brand new school. There's a new sidewalk that was put on North Atkinson Street, but you know, the adjoining streets, it was like, okay, they're there, but where do you think these kids are coming from? Where do you think these parents are coming from? They come from these neighborhoods. These neighborhoods need to be addressed. It's not on anybody's radar right now.
While we're in the school districts, how about your understanding of the education that goes on in Newburyport? Are we treating our children well with education?
Well, I hear good and bad. Again, I'm going to go back to the Florida resemblance. The Florida school systems, my two oldest daughters had over 600 kids in their graduating class, 40 kids in the classroom. We didn't have books for all the kids. You would have to share books in class. You were given access via an online link or a CD that you would load on a computer. Now, if your kid didn't have a computer or computer to get, how do you get to do your studies? Fortunately, my kids had those, so they could use those applications. But here, smaller classrooms, you know, you get 20 to 25 kids in a class. And my daughter is being taught what I would have expected my older two daughters to be taught in history and science and math and English, opposed to being taught how to take a test.
So you're happy with that development?
I'm happy with that development, absolutely. You know, A's and B's, low 600s on her MCAS. She scored in the advanced section of the MCAS. So I have no qualms about that. Now, is there, you know, the athletic programs and there's room for attention? Absolutely. I mean,
art,
no school
music,
system is perfect. Art, music, foreign language. You know, those programs when I was in school were started in the 8th grade. Shop, you know, woodworking, cooking, all those. These are life skills that these kids need to learn.
And in addition to that, it's difficult to get into an elite college if you don't have language skills. If you don't have music and art.
When I was in school, I said to myself, what do I need a second language for? I'm kicking myself right now that I didn't pay more. But today, it's not only 2 languages, it's sometimes 3 languages. You know, and Spanish is a big one. German's another big one. You know, we need to look at the whole program and figure out where we can make good choices. Not necessarily changes, but where can we shift gears and direct some monies in another direction to have a broader scope, you know? The school budget, I mean the school system, again, it's, I guess we have a subcommittee, the joint ed, so there's a pipeline between the school committee and city council.
And that's the main pressure that the city council has is through that committee to get done.
Yeah, it's, you know, as far as, you know, the budget and stuff like that, they have a one shot when it comes to council. It's up or down, and that's really the only input that the council has on their budget. But through this joint ed, if my understanding of it is correct, if there's some concerns or some issues that whichever side feels needs some addressing, then that's where it's done, I would imagine.
Let's talk about a term that I really resist, and that is free
cash. I love that, free cash.
I'm so old that I have the understanding that nothing in life is free.
Nothing in life is free. I don't have any free cash. All my free cash is done. Yeah, what free cash? You know, I brought that question up in my radio interview or radio spot the other day with my my challenger, who sits on the budget committee, and I asked him about the free cash. I said, "How much do we have in free cash?" I didn't get an answer. So we need some transparency there. How much? I mean, it's our money. The way I understand free cash, if we have a surplus of cash because we did well on the budget and we came in under budget numbers, and there's some money left over, what do we do with it? Can we put it towards schools, these programs we just spoke of? Can we put it towards a sidewalk project? Can we put it into a rainy day account?
Bring in a music teacher once a week or something, right?
Something, you know. I'm sure we could sit here and come up with 100 different reasons,
right.
And you change it up. It doesn't have to be the same thing every time. One time it could go to that rainy day account. The next time it could go to sidewalks. The next time it could go to a school project, or, you know.
It is a wonderful situation to have money left over.
It's a great, yeah. But
that's
the
not
thing is,
spent already.
You know, it's like that that inheritance. You can't take it with you.
Right.
You know, so let's use it before we're not what we want to be. Let's, you know, before they stop coming to visit our beautiful city. Let's use some of that money.
Okay.
You know.
We've talked about pretty much everything on the list that I had, except the last one, which I think is a really important one, and you know way better than most of us about how historic Newburyport is. When I first moved here 25 years ago, I was stunned at the houses on High Street. I'd never seen anything like them. I think High Street is a national treasure architecturally, and lots of people in town feel that preserving our historic treasure is an important way to go. And where do you? Not that nobody is against preservation, but what do you see the issues are with preservation?
I see this one. This can go a lot of ways, and I'm going to go tie this back to Florida again because there's some similarities. In Florida, you have a lot of communities where they have condo associations. And they regulate heavily what you can and can't have.
You know that going in.
Oh, you know that going in?
Right.
Absolutely. But sometimes those properties are allowed to be sublet, and the sublettee doesn't always know. For instance, when I moved down there, state of Massachusetts, when you register your truck, it's registered as a commercial vehicle. Well, where I started off living with my wife before we got our own place, there was no commercial vehicles allowed. It's an everyday pickup truck, but it said commercial on the license plate. So they would not allow me to park it there. So I would have to park it out on the main street, out of my sight of vision. So, getting back to our situation, I mean, there's got to be guidelines, or else we're going to have houses on High Street that don't look like they should belong on High Street. So we've got to have a template to follow. But we have to be careful how far we get into that. We can't, if I'm going to make an investment on a house on High Street, that's my investment. I really take offense to someone telling me what I can and can't do inside of it. And if I buy a house on High Street, one of the nice 3-story ones, I know why I'm buying it, because of its character. I'm not going to destroy it. I'm going to preserve it, like many people have done for many years in this city and town. Because as I know, I've been in a few of them. I've got friends that used to live in some of them, and they look just like they did when I was a kid today as they did back then. So even there's been a couple that have been built in my ward, right down the street from me, that look like they've been there all the time. So good job. You know, it was kept within that template. It fits the footprint of High Street. You know, and I just think we need to stick to the guidelines, but don't intrude. I think we got to watch our step there.
How about, to wrap it up, if you take a couple of minutes and talk to us about your vision for the city council, your vision for the city, what you'd like to see accomplished here in the near term?
I like I mentioned earlier, I have a vision of being involved. I have a vision of interacting with people. When I came back, and as I interact in town, and I go out with my family, and people say hi, and it's quite frequent that they do. They go, "Who's that?" and "Who's that?" and they laugh at me, and they make little jokes. "Who in town don't you know, Dad?" So I enjoy that camaraderie and the communication, and I want to be able to bring that into the city council and speak for those people that speak to me, and be their voice. They may not want to be, involved to that level, but they want to be heard. I have no problem speaking up and being heard. So piggyback on me, I'll take it there. But I have to have some dialogue, some communication. I enjoy what this city is. I enjoy what this city is about. I've read quite a few books on its history, from presidents that have campaigned here, and the clipper ships, and the whole 9 yards. I don't want to lose that. That's our treasure. So development is okay. Change is good, but we have to control the change. We have to monitor that change. We have to keep Newburyport, and we can't turn it into something that somebody else wants it to be.
Sean McDonald is a candidate for City Council from Ward 4. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.